Hey everyone, today's conversation is going to be really interesting. We're going to be talking about the use of redeployed systems so that you can actually get to science faster. So if you are in clinical research, if you are in manufacturing, you probably will care about today's conversation because it's going to hopefully raise questions and opportunities that you probably haven't considered in any significant, serious way. And now this might become an option for you. Our guest today is, this is the first time we've had him. He's got 20 plus years in asset disposition services and appraisals. He is the general manager of Surface Solutions, Ryan McAuliffe. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing lovely on this St. Patrick's Day today. As we stated, I'm wearing my green and feeling good, and weather's good up here in Boston. So awesome. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Just to be clear, you look gray on there, not green. Now that you mention it. There's the green. There you go.
There we go.
So I do want to add that, again, this is just a conversation. It's not legal advice. It's not regulatory advice. It's not consulting advice. If you want all of those, just reach out to one of us and we'd be happy to provide it for you. And they don't necessarily reflect the opinions of the host, the guest, or employers or clients. If you like what you hear, please leave a comment, please subscribe, please share. Please ask our guest questions. You can always find me on Twitter at DarshanTalks. Go to my website, DarshanTalks.com. You can actually find Ryan at his email address, ryan@SSLC.com, or you can actually go to their website at SSLC.com. Did we cover everything, Ryan?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, good. So Ryan, let's first introduce the concept. Talk to me a little bit about what SSLC does.
Yeah, we are an asset disposition provider for all types of biotech, pharmaceutical, instrumentation, packaging, testing equipment. So we cover soup to nuts, from lab chairs to lab benches to high-end mass spectrometry to pharmaceutical tableting, fluid bed granulation. So anything that's in a lab, anything that's in a manufacturing facility that's deemed idle or excess, we are there to help our clients on the disposition side finding future buyers for them. And on the other alternative side, it's providing second tier, not as high-end budget companies finding alternate resources for quality equipment.
So walk me through what the average process is like. So let's and I always hate asking that question because the truth is, once you do anything enough, there's no average process. It all changes for each person. But I'm going to be ignorant and ask the question anyways. So who's your average customer? Is it the second tier sort of client going, I need something here. I can't afford a full-blown brand new system. If so, how does that process work for you?
So on the buyer side, because we don't make a product, so I'm only as good as what we have in our inventory. So It's kind of twofold. When I'm prospecting or our team's out there looking for business, it's a twofold approach. Do you have any excess or do you have any needs? So we can kind of help accommodate on both sides. And we have plenty of customers that utilize both of our services. They have excess that they provide to us, we sell for them, but they're also using our inventory to procure items to further their science. So it all depends. Some of the higher level multinational clients we work with who are our main source of inventory, on a quarterly basis, they're sending us trucks of equipment to where we then take it in-house, inventory it, do some level of testing, and then market it to the world. So then that gives the second tier, generic or just startup companies a great chance to enhance their science quicker by getting really high-end premium equipment for maybe half, a quarter, or a third the price of new. And it also accelerates their equipment, and then it also gives them the opportunity to be more advanced. When they're starting out with a limited budget, you can't go buy a Ferrari, a Mercedes, a Maserati in our industry type equipment. But we are giving these people some opportunities to do so.
So when you have that situation, you've got the startup company who's looking for equipment. To me, it reminds me of the guy who's got a brand new company going, I want that Maserati. I want that brand new sticker. How do you demonstrate that this is just as good as the Maserati you could buy, if not better? Because the chances are you would buy the base model of the Maserati. This was used by someone else. This is the highest version of it. And this is why you should consider my tool.
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of things. When you're a startup, your budgets are limited. And you also have to prove you have results. You're results oriented. You got to show data to keep the science moving forward and to appease to investors or whoever, shareholders. So to weather the storm, the secondhand market's good because you're not depleting all of your investment money right away for some high-end instruments, which could take up 90% of your budgeting to go to 3 pieces of instruments.
Right.
God forbid there's long lead times to procure them new, or there's service and maintenance costs that are in addition that can really make things exorbitant. So we have some level of testing that we could go to people, hey, listen, here's a 1 or 2 year old machine. It came out of XYZ company, pedigree's immaculate. I still have contacts who ran the machine at the company, so we can do a conference call, get them together, and they can feel comfortable asking any questions they want. And then at the end of the day, feel, okay, if this person was using this, they just had the luxury of upgrading, right? Every 2 years, they get the auto upgrade. Not to say this instrument was bad. It's just, hey, we got the means to get a new one. Why not get it? Right. So we provide that outlet for them to dispose of it and then sell it. And they recoup good returns, but it also helps this startup company get footing, get traction a lot quicker than they would be if they had to spend all their money on new. It just diversifies their abilities.
Which is really interesting. Let me ask you this question. I'm gonna really break this down to an idiot level, that's where I am. But when I think of these public libraries, they always talk about having tools you can actually borrow. Is there a concept like that, almost a library of tools that you can check in and out and you pay for them as necessary? Or do you always have to engage in a buy-sell transaction? Is there a lease option, for example?
Yeah, there are lease options. It's not the most favorable one to do, because once it's secondhand, to then determine a ratio after a scale of 5 to 6 years usage, it's previous usage. So what I would say to some people, hey, Ryan, we only need this for a year or 2 years. Okay, great. Use it for 1 or 2 years. Let's then give it back to me and we'll resell it. I've done, numerous deals where we've sold the same piece of equipment for 4 different clients over the years. And it's amazing, right? Because some of our manufacturers in our industry make robust, very sustainable products that can last forever.
Right.
Probably to the detriment of them, right? Because they can't sell enough because the ones that they have are too good. People don't need to upgrade. But there's been a lot of instances where, we're done. Can you sell it? Sure. And there's been instances where we've sold it for more than what they bought it for. Because of the demand or the lead time for some of these is changed recently.
So how is that playing out right now? I mean, you talk about the fact that the lead times are so long, and you happen to be sitting on inventory that can really help in these scenarios. But the fact is that right now everyone is flush with money. That's the scenario. Are people going, I'd rather buy the brand new equipment because I got a tranche of cash right now? Or are you seeing more people going, I don't know where this inflation is going to go, and I'd rather sort of save my money for what's going to happen next?
Yeah, it's the latter now. Most of my suppliers, who they never really look to me to procure equipment from, are coming quite readily, asking for X, Y, and Z, because again, supply chain issues are out there. There's lead times are immense. And if you have deadlines to hit and you can't get a piece of equipment in for over a year, just think of how much that pushes back. Once you get it, you're still then a month or 2 of training, installation, assuring that it works before you then start to even put your product through it. So our industry has given some people the capabilities to exponentially enhance their science. Because if I have something that's 52 weeks out, but Surplus Solutions can provide me something in a week, I get that thing up and running in a month. I just saved our business so much more time and money and results. Now we can get back to our investors or our shareholders or our patients, more importantly, is developing the science to find cures for various diseases. So it's exponentially enhances the productivity and the possibility of breakthroughs.
So that's a really interesting perspective. It exponentially increases the chances of breakthroughs. That should be your tagline. It's great. My question for you then is, if you've got a scenario where you've got this lack of lead time, for lack of a better term, Are you finding VCs reaching out to you, or do you still see companies individually reach out? Because I would think as a VC, you're sort of almost, if you've got a catalog of companies you have, having a master agreement with you to just supply the stuff would make the most sense for them, because it's a capital expenditure and they're not spending over and over again.
Yeah, and again, as results and financially driven as they are, yeah. So not as much as I'd probably like, but we deal globally, North America, but our bread and butter right now, just because of the mecca of life sciences in Cambridge. So there's, again, a growing amount of VCs who've got a significant amount of companies they're started. So we will deal with them more on the company individual basis, but I do know it goes up top that there is some communication saying, hey, let's look at this surplus solutions as an outlet to cost savings and get things going a lot quicker than we initially anticipated. Because as you know, the real estate in Cambridge or some of the higher cities where we have biotech is $100+ a square foot.
Right.
So you're paying a ton of money just for lab space. You then have the instruments, the sciences, the results. So I think there's the cost savings measures that we provide are quite abundant. And we are seeing some VC communication. So
do you find yourself trying to address the issues of validation and stuff, or how does that play itself out? Because I would imagine if it's a secondhand piece of equipment, someone might go, what if it's broken? What if it doesn't work as well? So how do you address those issues?
Sure. Good question. We do a high level tier of investigating upon receipt. So what we have is we purchased an old Lowe's home improvement. So we have 160,000 square foot equipment.
Wow.
So we have a testing center. We have a mock lab where we inventory and accentuate and photo and video. So all known faults are broadly made known. And it's priced in mind too, right? When we get a secondhand piece of equipment, I do know that there's going to be some level of TLC that you're going to have to apply to it to maybe cater or suit to your specific requirements.
Right.
So we do allow people to come. They can come to our facility. We have the capabilities to test. We have nitrogen hookups. We have oodles of different electrical outlets, power amperages. So you're getting some level of satisfaction, and we do some level of right of return. But if you're talking about the validation side of things, there are third-party vendors that we do have relationships with, along with some of the OEMs. The original equipment manufacturers are versed to working with us. Some aren't, but some are, because they realize, hey, listen, if it's a startup company, they know they can't buy this new instrument from us new, but let's let them get in the secondhand market, get familiar, get comfortable. So when they do make it big, they're going to buy our product brand new. So it's a good little stepping stone to think about, okay, don't blow off the secondhand market if you're a new equipment manufacturer. It's like some of these guys just can't afford that Maserati, right?
Right.
I want it, but I can't afford it. Well,
Yeah.
a new one or a slightly used one for a quarter of new, and we get our science going and the validations done on it. Because once you get something validated and it works, you don't want to change.
Right.
The control and the validation protocols, IQ/OQ is absurd. The amount of money you have to deal with. Some woman sat there and wrote out a 50-page documentation for 10 steps. They don't want to do that again.
So do you get to use the previous IQ/OQ and pass it on if they actually ask for it?
Well, again, once you move something, whether it be from the bench to somewhere else, it has to be requalified. There's proprietary, we'll X a lot of stuff out. Yes, we use it as a template. No one can directly mimic it, right? Because it's going to be for different purposes, but it's a huge baseline. And what I tell a lot of my clients that I'm selling for is the more information you can provide me up front, the better the sale will go. Because I say to some of these bigger guys, hey, put yourself in this buyer's shoe. If I was going to sell you this widget right now, what do you want to know? So give me all that information when you're giving me your excess. So it's just like, put yourself, what would you want to know? So provide that to me so then I can have that and we can resell it at a great number and a higher return.
So what does the seller get out of this? Obviously they get to resell, but are you actually taking title, or is it?
Well, there's instances, right? I would say 60-40, either way, it's consigned or we buy outright. I mean, there are some instances where someone says, listen, I don't want to go through the process. Just send me a check, get it out of our lab, right? Or it's a distressed company and they're done. They're kind of going virtual, or someone else is going to clinical. They've ramped up enough of the product and the clinical trial's got to go do their thing, so they don't have any more science till the results come back in. So it varies. But what a seller would get from me if we're selling on their behalf is they get a great return. And a lot of times, depreciation's 5 or 7 years. And if my cell is 8 years old and I'm getting you tens of thousands of dollars, well, that's gravy, right? That's now going back into their budget for them to utilize for some future purchase.
Right.
It's a great win for them, or it just helps mitigate some losses. Some people, it's the chicken or the egg. They have a project, so they go buy all the equipment before it ever actually may get approved. And some way it doesn't happen, but they have all the equipment. So now it's like, whoa, we got to get this off our hands. So we're at least providing an influx of cash to help offset some of these financial hits that occur. But by and large, we're selling stuff that's probably just around the fringe of coming off the depreciation scale. So it's a great win.
Yeah. So okay, so we've got a situation. So is there like a fixed percentage you tend to keep as contingency, or is it always based on just what the product is?
Yeah, it's project specific.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about so now a potential seller calls you. At that point, do you go to and let's assume it's a company that's going to shut down, and they've got a bunch of equipment. You mentioned to me that you actually were in Salina, Tennessee last week, and you were doing a walkthrough through the facility. Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like. What are you walking into? What are you looking for? How do you decide if something's worth it or not? What is the thought process going through your head?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's a delicate situation, right?
Right.
A lot of times in this instance, it's a distressed company and there's layoffs involved, and here I walk in and who's this guy?
Right.
And then I'm asking a ton of questions about this scientist's piece of equipment that he or she's been working on for 5 or 6 years. And who am I to take a picture, kind of readjust it and ask if it's in good working order? So there's a level of respect and understanding when I come into some of the situations like I was walking last week. But over our years of doing this, collecting data in our CRM system, we're selling thousands of pieces of equipment over a yearly basis. So we have kind of like a Kelly Blue Book of lab assets, right?
Right.
I can compare like items from what something sold 3 months ago, but then you actually factor in location, right? So where is this asset located? You just sold one for $20,000 in Cambridge last week, but it could be in a very remote area. So you have to factor in the amount of time, packaging, effort, and shipment, because there's no one in a walking distance area to come purchase that. So that plays a factor, and the condition of the lab,
right? The
makeup of the lab. There's a lot of people who want to be in certain zip codes, but they'll move into a building that's not really lab friendly. They may not have a loading dock, but you wouldn't, Darshan, think that that's anything of significance. Well, when you're moving hundreds of pieces of equipment, it's ground level and you have to have a lift gate truck. That's time and energy and more expenses. Are things still hooked up? Have things been powered down? Are things leased or financed? Or are they owned outright? Sometimes you come in these situations where people don't even know about that. And it's like, whoa, hold on. Do you even have the authority? So it's just years of experience that you just kind of like 10 questions right from the get-go. When do you have to be out? Have the assets been decontaminated? Have you removed your IP from the software? Have you actually physically removed your product from the cold storage?
Right.
Yeah.
So if you've got a situation where you're fine, like these questions you're asking in retrospect seem so basic, but it's definitely something I can see people forgetting. So if that's true, let's and again, I'm a lawyer, so maybe this is the part that struck out to me the most. But you said, do you even own this asset? If you might just have leased it and you don't even know. Do you find yourself poring over contracts, or is it on them to figure that piece out?
Yeah, it's them to figure it out, because when they're signing my contract, it's saying you're free of liens, no encumbrances, and it's owned outright.
Have you ever been in a situation where they were mistaken?
Yeah, not fun.
How did that go?
And that asset was then sold to another company. It had to be yanked.
Oh my God!
So you live and you learn, right? You learn the hard way. So you got to really vet, and there's means of searching assets or companies on their liens, right?
So how do you? So are you talking about like a UCC lien and trying to find?
Yep.
Okay.
You type a company name in, and you can run a report. And if they forget, hey, just want to let you know that I kind of came across this. Rather casually, you just say, I don't know if all these are owned. we need to get sign off. So, but I understand that there's it's difficult times when either a facility shuts down, and you also got to look on the acquisition side too, to make sure that the company acquiring it is in the good footing to acquire that company, and
right.
have full control of the assets.
But now let's take the position where the situation you described, which is someone bought the asset. It was from a company that was, say, shutting down.
Yeah.
The company got the money. It was distributed to all the different shareholders or whatever it is, and the purchaser now has the product or the machine. Who do you go back to when you find out you can't own the machine? Like, you never owned the machine to sell it. So
you go back to the creditors, right? So it's either some leasing institute, some financial institution, a banking institution, and you just say, hey, here's what transpired.
Okay.
Most of the time, they've already made their money, or it's the delta of what they would have lost compared to their investment is kind of meager, and it's better. We'll reroute the funds, so it's better than nothing, right? They're actually getting something for this lost investment.
And how long in that specific situation? Obviously, we're not getting to specifics, but how long did it take for you to find out this was a problem?
Within 3 months.
Okay, so it's a lot easier to do because the money's still floating around, if you will.
Yeah.
Have you heard about situations where it goes longer, and how do you handle it then?
Fortunately, no, but I can imagine. We do some in the production packaging, and if you have a significantly massive piece of equipment where you paid thousands of dollars to relocate it, put it in your factory on your manufacturing packaging floor, and to have that yanked, the amount of money that you spent just to get it installed, you can't recoup that. So that'd be a tough situation. But knock on wood, that's we do enough due diligence to probably combat that from happening.
So do in the end, this sounds like very much a people business, because you have to not just address the fact that there's equipment, but there's sensitivity involved. What are the tips you give for people who are looking for that deal? What tips do you give to the seller? Because obviously the seller is resigned, the individual who's selling is resigned, but his company is probably still invested in what they've spent years, if even decades, working through. Do you have a protocol on guiding them through that process, or do you just show up, and how does that go?
Well, we'll do initial. Let's say when I'm doing a walkthrough, right? You do initial meet and greet and sit in a conference room and kind of divulge each other's businesses, state of the union. And I've been doing this for a long time and built a network of connections across the country to also kind of find some synergies, or are they doing like business with some other clients of mine, and kind of assist and say, hey, maybe we can find a collaboration here, or I can also assist with maybe giving you some recommendations for companies that are hiring. Oh,
okay. So you often find yourself guiding not just the sales part of this, but having those conversations that might numb some of the pain.
Yes.
Interesting.
Because think about on the opposite side, I'm dealing with startups. So they're buying a bunch from me, but they're also saying, hey, labor shortages or finding qualified candidates is tough. Please keep us in mind if you come across someone. So if I'll go to a distressed company, it's kind of the inverse. Hey, I just was here. They're buying a ton of stuff. They're growing. If you have an interest, I'll gladly make an introduction. So it's at least weathering the storm a little bit for them to give them some solace that, hey, there's opportunities out there.
Do you find yourself, therefore by default, in the recruitment business as well? Do you work with recruiters who might have synergy?
Well, somewhat we do, but I kind of will put them directly with the other company. And for us, my industry is very unique. So it's not like I have thousands of people who do what we do. So if sometimes in these labs I find someone good, yeah, we will engage heavily to promote them or hopefully have them come join us.
Very interesting. Obviously, we're well past time. It was amazing having you on, Ryan. Thank you so much. Before we go on, a couple of things. First of all, how can people reach you?
Yeah, Ryan at SSLLC.com or 617-699-9011. I forgot to include that, but that's a number I can be readily reached at, and glad to assist on all fronts.
Absolutely. And you can also go to the website itself at SSLC.com.
Correct.
And any parting words?
It was a great experience. Pleasure meeting you, and we'll spread the word about Darshan Talks.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for coming on.
Yep. Thank